Hello, welcome to the program Spiritism Inspiring Lives. Why Spiritism Inspiring Lives? Because here we have the purpose to reflect about certain topics, certain themes, which actually are drops of wisdom that comes from the superior spirits, from the spiritual world, inspiring us. So Spiritism Inspiring Lives means the reflections that we bring here aim to be nourishing our souls, nourishing our minds, nourishing our souls, so that we can almost, let's say, reevaluate ourselves in the great journey of spiritual growth. Today, our reflection is based on affability and kindness, understanding that any topic that we reflect on, we never have the aim to bring expressions or references in a conclusive way. No, we bring reflections. They are always open for more studies, for more reflections, but here we are, drops of wisdom that comes from the superior spirits towards us, who also are spirits learning on the planet Earth, this blessed journey where we are. Just for us to start here a bit, understanding, and of course, it can be expanded, that affability refers to characteristics or creation action of someone who is affable, quality of a person who is courteous or demonstrates courtesy, aptitude or tendency to treat someone with benevolence, kindness, figurative sense, tenderness, attribute of a gentle and tender person. So we start with that, and here we reflect now in these brief drops of wisdom based on the wisdom of the Spirit Emmanuel, who starts by saying, and I quote, "In the practice of affability and kindness, which will attract to you the currents of sympathy, be compassionate towards everyone, and above all, keep goodwill and sincerity in your heart." It is important for us who are beings in evolution, growing spiritually, to develop the kindness and affability, understanding that is a practice that we can train, exercise ourselves on a daily basis. So when we choose to cooperate with everyone, there was a good for everyone, that we override our own shortcomings and limitations and rigid ways of being, so we become more flexible. And here what we are invited to reflect on is very important to develop within ourselves the goodwill. Goodwill we develop despite of the shortcomings of others. We may choose to forgive, we may choose to forget, we may choose to elaborate new thoughts who are based on the natural code of evolution in the universe, which is based on love. And love is nothing to do with permissiveness, but the love from a mature perspective is almost like addressing our unique way of being in a very profound way, so that we fulfill our duties from the higher self within, the inner wisdom that we bring within. We all have the possibilities in our daily existences, the same as sincerity. We want to really override any eventual aspect of manipulation, of falsehood, of lying, and so on and so forth, because that always comes from a very wounded place within ourselves, and in that way we cannot promote high self-esteem, inner security, inner confidence, neither inner peace, neither inner harmony. But yet when we choose to be sincere, loyal to ourselves, and then in relation to the other people, situations, because we become more aware gradually as the immortal beings that we are the first person, the first being that we are relating with is ourselves. So when we lie to others, it's because we are lying to ourselves. We still are preferring our own shortcomings instead of challenging them and healing them. So it's very important to observe that. Hello, Antonia Gonçalves, be welcome here with us as well. And then carry on, I quote, "It is not because you smile all the time that you will achieve the miracle of fraternity. Incomprehension smiles in sarcasm, and malevolence smiles in revenge." See how important the Spirit Emmanuel is helping us here because sometimes we may have, even unconsciously, the need to go around and smiling, even in awkward situations, because we have that need to please everyone, because internally we are lacking self-love, self-respect, dignity. When we look our long journey as we inherit our own consciousness in terms of tendencies, in terms of values, in terms of likes and dislikes, they are all part of our unconscious memory. Sometimes we bring guilt through all the mistakes that we did in the past, so we try to compensate in a very infantile way. And that, what Emmanuel teaches us here, that is not really referring to a healthy state of mind. That usually is the manifestation of our own conflicts, because we are not plain beings. We have up and downs, and of course, as healthier we become, we have different tones of voice, different tones of how we communicate. So again, fraternity is the consequence of humility, humbleness, sincerity, goodwill to cooperate, because we know as more as we become humble or develop humbleness, more easily it is for us to cooperate in any activity which promotes the goodness for all. That is natural when we study the scale of evolution in the Spirits book, question 100 and onwards, when we read and study the characteristics of the imperfect spirits and the characteristic of the happy spirits. The happy spirits, because they already overcame their own shadows, they enlightened them, in promoting the goodness within, they are always very open and flexible and adaptable to cooperate for the goods of all. As more inferior we are always pretty much moved by pride and selfishness and all of those shadows. Then we quite often can complicate the work of goodness, which actually is the school of Christ, Jesus Christ here on earth for all of us. And we, instead of alleviating our own consciousness, we are complicated it. Instead of learning to become more kind and more affable, developing our affection, we may still prefer to resist these loving possibilities. So it's important to think about that. Because the natural law in the universe, or the natural code of love that is behind the evolution, the growth of every soul in evolution, comes from God. And as long as we don't familiarize with that, we don't study God's laws, which all are based in love, and we don't train, we don't practice that, then still we are preferring the, let's say, transit within pride and selfishness. And that is the cause of our disturbances, with our illnesses, or also our unhappiness. Moving on here for us to go a bit further with Emmanuel quote, he says, "It won't be because you share your kisses with others that you will build your sanctuary of affection." Judas, deceived by his own passions, betrayed the master with a kiss. So again, kindness and affection, where we are, affability, where we are reflecting briefly here today, it is not through internal lies, it is not through internal misunderstandings or manipulations, because once we are in the physical body, which is the situation of all of us who are incarnate, we can easily manifest through the body aspects that in reality is not really the foundation of who we are, as in the example here that Emmanuel is teaching us. Because Judas, yes, he kissed Jesus, but he betrayed him later on. And that could also be some aspects that sometimes we may be doing. It's still because we are eluded. But even if we find out that we may have these conflicts, let's invest in the time that we have on earth and overwrite our memories. It is really valuable, very valuable, to put the effort into to learn to be honest. It is a price to pay, because we are choosing to develop our own individuation, therefore coming out of the massification, where a lot of people still are in this mood. And this is the major reference that the majority of souls on earth still are moving within. But we have the possibility to develop or inner wisdom and choose then to give us new opportunities. When kisses is an affectionate expression of love, of friendship, of fraternity, when it comes from a very sincere, genuine inner place, which is the sacred, the divine within us. But when it's based on false intentions, it's preferable that we challenge those internal aspects, because these are coming from internal lies that we bring, that sooner or later we need to heal them, and we can choose to do that now. If we cannot do that alone, how about choosing a study group that we can study together, that we can reflect together, that we can help each other, or so different other ways that we have on earth that we can always consider. Any Emmanuel carries on, I quote, on the other hand, it is not because you proclaim the truth rigorously that you will be blessed in life. Thoughtlessness in the charitable service worsens illnesses and multiplies disasters. Here again, the Spirit is helping us to understand. One level, perhaps we are all over the place, understanding or perhaps thinking that that is being nice. Nice usually is a reference of or immaturity. On the other hand, we may say, well, I say everything, but I feel I don't have any filter. I don't have any self-control. I haven't learned self-discipline. That is also not healthy. It's also not the correct way which we balance ourselves. We become more in harmony within ourselves. So it's important that we do learn to gradually become aware of who we are, always accepting in a loving way either our shortcomings and our strengths. But when I say acceptance, I do not mean validating. There is a huge difference. When I say accepting, that is part of the process of self-love. And whatever the shortcoming may be, taking or learning to take the responsibility, which is internal autonomy, that dialoguing with ourselves now, that the shortcoming is not suitable anymore, that we have different options as we are now becoming more aware of our creative internal mind, where infinite possibilities of options are available for our own growth. And moving on, here is still Emmanuel says to us, I quote, with aggressive frankness, although touched by good intentions, you will not be the agent for the help you desire, managing only to cause despair and indiscipline. Again, sometimes, as we learned in the past, where the greatest power was or brutal force, now, sometimes we still bring those automatic reactions, instinctive reactions. But it's important to learn to interact with our aggressiveness and understand these mechanisms so that we can also embrace them and heal them gradually. Because aggressiveness is really weakness. It's not power as we may have learned in the past. The greatest power in the universe is the love that comes from God. And also, although we may have good intentions, as Emmanuel referred here, but the direction once we communicate in an aggressive way is not correct. We tend to say that place is full of people with good intentions. The good intentions also need to be implemented or trained and exercised through good thoughts that really promote the goodness within in others, because otherwise we can clash with other people at home, with our partners, with our children, with our work colleagues, and so on and so forth. We will not get that. And that also, the aggressive frankness, it is an evidence of our inner indiscipline. And the solution is to gradually develop mental discipline. For us to do that, we need to be aware what we think, be aware of our thoughts, of our thinking process, be aware what is the new way of thinking as learners as we are. And each time when the old negative way comes to our conscious mind, is not to liberate it in a reactive way, but is learning to challenge and hold back, to control our thoughts, to control our emotions, learn to think, to reflect before we express them, because then we give ourselves time even to change our thinking. Because in a loving way that we address ourselves through self-awareness, we become more and more aware of our shortcomings without guilt, without blaming us. But we are increasing self-awareness. That means that we are in control and not controlled anymore by them. And in that way also helps us to be kinder with ourselves when we are not critical of ourselves through our own limitations, or when we do mistakes, not criticize ourselves, but place ourselves in the learning position. We are also developing kindness. When we learn to be tolerant with others' shortcomings, we are also developing kindness in our emotional intelligence. We are becoming more affectionate because we are becoming internally more tolerant towards the weakness of others, merely because we understand that we also carry weakness within ourselves. And then Emmanuel continues here by saying, I quote, "It will not be through public praise or open accusation that you will help your companion. Almost always, human praise is a stumbling block, and complaints are usually a cruelty." That is very deep for us to reflect when we consider expanding kindness within ourselves. Quite often we may be searching for public approval, the approval of others, but not the approval of our own consciousness. And even if we receive the external approval, but if that approval does not correspond to the spirit's higher self-approval, that is still creates conflicts, that is still does not favor the expansion of kindness and gentleness and tolerance and patience, forgiveness, learning to be more benevolent towards everyone. And also when he says here even in these days, in the 21st century where we are on earth, there's still pretty much this human praise going on, even when it's not honest, when it's not sincere, but it's just to seek approval. And in that way, we are not helping ourselves to heal ourselves and neither to cooperate to heal humanity. We don't appoint the shortcomings of others in a nasty way, but we are constantly increasing the internal observation process, and also quite often complaining about other people, gossiping about other people, as Emmanuel puts it here. That deep within ourselves, we are manifesting our cruelty from the old days of our primitive stage. So once we become more aware, we also are more attentive in terms of controlling those aspects, in terms of giving a different direction of this energy on the emotional level, using our rational mind, using our creative mind, where we can always learn new ways of thinking, new ways of elaborating our rational mind, always in correspondence or in accordance towards the natural law in the universe. As we carry on here, Emmanuel says, and I quote, "Smiles and words may simply be in the appearance, in joy or in pain, in speech or in silence, in encouragement or in warning. Light the flame of love in the heart and act with kindness." Smiles and words appearance. Sometimes when we want it from someone, whatever it is, we may be in this bargain, in this process of pleasing, of exaggerating the way that we are communicating, the way that we are smiling. But again, let's be more centered, more sincere with ourselves, that we still can communicate in a loving, mature way when we agree, when we disagree, when we are entitled, for instance, to talk with our boss to see or address our salary increase, but we don't need to manipulate. We just need to learn to trust our inner higher self. We just need to learn to believe in the divine essence that we bring within ourselves, so that we are more loving within, more honest within. Those are elements fundamental when we want to grow in our ability to be kind, to be gentle, to be affectionate as well. Not to lie, to be honest and sincere. As Emmanuel says here, independent of the experience that we go through, because life for us in this stage, we all have up and downs. We have days that are good, there are other moments that are more challenging, because we are here to learn. But as long as our focus is in developing, in growing, and expanding the divine law within ourselves, that means stimulating the creative mind within ourselves, we have different options how we can engage with experiences. Always bear in mind, as we are here briefly reflecting about the ability to be kind and gentle, that surely requires for us to let go a lot of defense mechanisms from our egoistic state of mind, that we always want to be right. I will show the other how it should be. The revenge. We need to choose to let go. Inner peace. It depends how we think, how we talk with ourselves through the way that we think. To educate our emotions, to hold back, understanding why we are doing that, so that we increase the self-control, so that we develop the inner wisdom, so that we harmonize ourselves within. Because each time when we are focused on the major goal to become better today than we were yesterday, and tomorrow better than today, actually we are expanding goodness within, and that impacts the great ability to be kind with ourselves and also with others, where we are based in the universe. And then Emmanuel says, let's cultivate gentleness without affectation and sincerity without thorns. Only love knows how to be kind and affectionate, to understand and help, using situations and problems, circumstances in life, experiences, to elevate our eternal spirit to the temple of the divine light. Let's cultivate gentleness without affectation. That is a challenging for us, because we still are quite confused within our psychic, but that can also be clarified better once we study more about the natural laws in the universe, understand, study ourselves more, how we function within our psychic, how we relate with our mental state, with our emotional state, how is that dynamic internally, and how is that expressed externally, so that we don't misunderstand gentleness and be kind and be loving in an affectation way, which means we are overcompensating. Therefore, we are not helping to promote ourselves and neither others. We create dependencies on each other, where we are still, let's say, in a lack of self-love, expecting others to love ourselves, or when we are in a permissive state of mind, even if it is unconscious, we are always wanted to take advantage of people's situations, and that is not healthy. That does not help to promote self-esteem, inner self-love, inner confidence, when we really, it's almost like navigate within ourselves, understand our shortcomings, and understand our strengths, understand the goals that we choose now, and choose constantly to renew the inner response if needed, if it's not in accordance to our higher self. And then as we carry on here in our reflections, we bring the thoughts shared by Joanna de Angelis. I quote, "Do not react to arbitrariness by contaminating yourself with anger and rebelling, thus becoming equally violent. Respond to aggressions with affability." That is the journey within of self-control, as the benefactor Joanna de Angelis is helping us here. Is a practice, is an exercise. For that, we need to be willing not to react anymore. It's necessary that we will consciously be willing to stop reacting on the automatic way and choosing to control ourselves so that we develop the inner power that follows that internal autonomy that we do. And it's not because other people are violent towards us, either through words or actions, that we need to level ourselves towards them. Because in that way, if we do that, we are spirits with the same inferior tendencies. So if someone is verbally aggressive towards us, bear in mind, we do have the internal option to silence, to forgive, to increase our understanding that that being, that soul, is a very ill state, that we have options of standing up for ourselves in terms of being kind towards us. Prayer sometimes helps us also to, sounds like bringing the focus back to us, to the sacred within us. We still are training and learning and moving within a planet, Earth, which is quite imperfect. So not addressing the imperfections of others, but mainly focusing on ourselves and gradually freeing ourselves from. And then finally, Joanna says, true affability always ends up prevailing. Someone may say, how can that be? If someone is always screaming at me and shouting at me and complaining about me, how can affability always end up prevailing? Because all reflections here, they are based on the immortality of the soul. They are based on God's laws. And God's laws are equal for all of us, for everywhere, despite of our level of spiritual growth. And in the long journey of evolution, sooner or later, affability and kindness will prevail within all of us. All our shortcomings and shadows are illusions. They are transitory. So let's not identify and reinforce them within ourselves, but take the wisdom or expand the inner wisdom within ourselves. Always bear in mind that we are souls in evolution. We are spirits, and we are responsible for our thoughts or emotions, how we respond, how we interact in relation to other people's situations. And as more as we become conscious, surely we have more conscious choices towards kindness with ourselves and therefore also with others. Not trying to control other people. If the other is still the other, which we give the right to be where they are, if they still carry on having negative views about ourselves, allow them to have those. But above all, let's develop the self-image that we are divine beings in essence and choosing to develop the divine aspects within ourselves. I repeat again, in order to learn to be kind and to be affectionate, it is fundamental that we learn to be forgiving, tolerant, patient, benevolent, indulgent towards the shortcomings of others. And that is a constant exercise. Affability and kindness cannot be developed through manipulation, through appearances. No, those are virtues. Those are aspects from the higher self that the seeds are within the essence, the self, the divine within us. So as more as we connect with that part and are genuinely honest and sincere when we are relating with other people, when we are cooperating, when we are more friendly, when we are letting go the shortcomings of others, we are becoming kinder with ourselves. We are not losing our power. We are actually gaining the real power, which is the power of the universal love. That is the love that comes from God. I do wish you much peace to all, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.